Okay, we're going to start with the respiratory system, anatomy of the respiratory system. Obviously, the respiratory system has multiple different functions. As you can see here, gas exchange, right? It allows us to exchange the oxygen and carbon dioxide. Communication, it allows us to produce sounds, olfaction, we can smell. Acid-base balance, because we have a formula, right? That it will allow us to produce hydrogen. And I already showed you that chemical reaction before. Blood pressure regulation, because it produces an enzyme that is necessary to increase the blood pressure. That enzyme, you have it right here, is angiotensin 2. And then also blood and lymph flow, because it produces pressure in the thorax and it allows us to push the lymph and blood back up into the heart. Blood filtration, in case that you have a blood clot, it will get trapped in the lungs instead of being trapped in other areas that are smaller where it can cause more damage, such as in the eyes. Expulsion of abdominal contents. When you produce pressure in the thorax, when you go to the toilet, you produce pressure in the thorax. That helps the pressure in the abdomen to release the contents. Okay, so right here you have the respiratory system. First part, you have the nose. This part, nose. This is the pharynx. This part right here is the larynx. This is the trachea. And from there we have the lungs. We're going to look into that. So let's keep scrolling down. And we have in here the nose. The nose, it warms the air, right? Helps us smell. It's composed of cartilage, as you can see right here. Okay, and also has some bones in there that separate, for example, the right side from the left side, right? And that is because we have bones such as the ethmoid bone that will allow us to do that. And inside, we're going to have structures that you're going to see right here. Okay, these structures right here, they're called nasal conchae. When the air goes through the nose, this produces a turbulence, and it allows all the air to get in contact with the different areas that we have right here in our nose. Because in our nose, we have nose, and we have, mucus in order to trap, dust. And we have also hair in order to protect this area, right? So then we are able to trap all these things because of the turbulence that is produced around this area. Below that, so here's where the nose ends, and below that is this part. I said this is going to be the pharynx. You can see here they are actually painted in 3 colors. The top part is the nasopharynx, that's behind your nose. The next part right here in pink is the oropharynx, that is behind your mouth. And this part right here, laryngopharynx, is on top of your larynx. This is just a pathway for air as well as food to go down. Okay. Okay, we scroll down, we said the pharynx. Okay, the pharynx has 3 parts. We already mentioned that: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. After that, what continues is the larynx. The larynx is composed mainly of cartilages, as you can see right here. Okay, obviously it's not just cartilages, it has ligaments as well as muscles. Okay, and they all have different names. This big cartilage right here is the thyroid cartilage. This is what people usually call the Adam's apple. The main job of the larynx is to produce sounds, right, when we're going to talk, as well as, block this area right here with the epiglottis so the food doesn't go into the respiratory system. So if we scroll down, I already mentioned some of the cartilages, and you can see those right here. So we said in the front we have the epiglottic cartilage, thyroid cartilage, as well as cricoid cartilage. In the back we have arytenoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage, and cuneiform cartilage. Usually these are 2 sets of 2, the ones on the back. Okay, so what is the composition of the larynx? Basically it's cartilage, but in addition to that we also have muscle and ligaments. Okay, so let's keep scrolling down. Right there you have the top part of the larynx, which is the area where we're going to produce the different type of sounds when we are going to talk. Right here, this part is called the glottis. Right here is the epiglottis. And you have in here a cartilage, which is the corniculate cartilage. When every single time you move this cartilage, the more cartilage is going to move. This cartilage is going to be moved by the muscles that we have in this area, and that will adjust these vocal cords, and that will produce different sounds. Okay. Right here, you can also see the trachea, which is what continues after the larynx. Right here, this is a trachea. Okay, the trachea is also just a pipe that allows the air to go down. Okay, so if we scroll down, the top is the larynx, but the bottom of that trachea is this part right here. This part is called the carina. The carina is going to separate into different pieces, which are going to be called the main bronchi. Each bronchi will go into each of the lungs. So we have 2 bronchi because we have 2 lungs. If we keep scrolling down, right here you have what I was telling you about the different types of sounds that we can produce, because again, the muscles will move the cartilage. The cartilage will adjust the aperture of the vocal cords, and that adjustment will allow us to produce different kinds of sounds that later on will translate into words. And as I mentioned before, down there is the trachea. So if we keep scrolling down, we're going to see the trachea. Right there, you have the larynx on top of the trachea. Right, the trachea is just a windpipe that allows the air to go through. And the bottom part is the carina, where the trachea separates into 2 main bronchi because we have 2 lungs. The trachea, as you can see here, is mainly cartilage. Okay, as you can see here, it's almost a complete cartilage, but it's not complete because the back has muscle. In addition to that, there is tissue here surrounding the trachea. And this tissue is going to have cells that are going to be ciliated, and it's going to have cells that are going to produce mucus. The reason for that is because in the trachea also we're going to trap dust that will come with the air. So I was telling you right here, you have goblet cells that produce mucus, and these are the ciliated cells that are going to sweep all this mucus with dust up in order to be cleaned up from the trachea. So that way we stop this dust reaching the lungs. Okay, let's keep scrolling down, and we get to the lungs and the bronchial tree. So if we scroll down, right here, you can see that we have 2 lungs, the left lung and the right lung. The right lung has 2 lobes, you see 1 and 2, and the other one has 3, 1, 2, and 3. The main branches are going to be called main bronchi. The branches after that are going to be called secondary bronchi. Okay, and then after that, they keep branching out. Tertiary bronchi, bronchioles, and at the end, you're going to have the alveoli. So what is the purpose of the whole respiratory system, from the nose all the way to the lungs? Basically to allow the air to go through all these structures and to reach the lungs. So the lungs must have certain characteristics in order to be able to receive this air. So what is this characteristic that the lungs have? If we scroll down, we're going to see that what you have is the alveoli right here. See, this is the lung. It's a cut piece of the lung. You can see here it has a whole bunch of holes. It looks like a sponge. You know, when you put a sponge in water, the water fills these spaces. In the case of the lung, these spaces are filled with oxygen. So the respiratory system is basically to allow the air, every single time we breathe, to go through your nose, through your pharynx, to your larynx, trachea, bronchi, main bronchi, primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. How the air reaches in there? Because the alveoli is like a balloon, right? It has a space in there, like a sponge, as I said. Right here, you can clearly see, right here, see these spaces, and in there is where the oxygen is going to be. Now, we also mentioned that one of the main jobs of the respiratory system is gas exchange, because we are going to exchange the gas that we're going to get here in the alveoli, which is going to be oxygen, with the gas that you're going to have right here in the red blood cell, which is going to be carbon dioxide, because this brings the carbon dioxide from the tissues. Okay, so if we keep scrolling down, we're going to have the alveoli right there, and the alveoli, it has 2 cells. One cell is called squamous or type 1 cell, and the other one is great alveolar cell or type 2. Most of the walls of the alveolar are provided by the squamous cells, but the great alveolar cells type 2 produce surfactant, as you can see right here, surfactant. This is a very important substance. When you have a balloon and you put water on the balloon and then you remove the water, the balloon is very hard to inflate because the water will collapse the walls of the balloon, and when you try to inflate them, it's going to be very hard for these walls of the balloon to open up. Same thing in here. The alveoli must be open to allow the air to go in. So what happens is, since in the air you have water, water may start accumulating in here. Eventually will produce the collapse of the alveoli, and you wouldn't be able to get oxygen in your lungs. So what happens is that the alveolar cells, the great alveolar cell, is going to produce a substance called surfactant. The surfactant will produce or will maintain the alveoli open, will stop the collapsing of these alveoli walls, so we can continue breathing. Okay. Now, what do we say is the job of the alveoli? Basically, gas exchange. And you can see here again, this is the alveoli, this is the red blood cell, and as I was telling you, it's gas exchange. You exchange carbon dioxide with oxygen. Carbon dioxide is the gas that comes from the tissues in your blood, and it goes to your alveoli. And the oxygen is the one that comes from the air, and then from the alveoli will go into your red blood cells. So if we keep scrolling down, we're going to see something else, that we have a pleura. The pleura is a membrane that covers the lungs. Okay, the pleura is a serous membrane, therefore it has two layers. Right, one layer is going to be visceral pleura, and the other one is going to be the parietal pleura. Since it has two layers, you're going to have a cavity in between, which is the pleural cavity. The reason why you have this pleural cavity is because you're going to have a fluid in that cavity. Why do you have this fluid, and what is the job or the function of the pleura? As you can see right here, reduction of friction, okay, by covering it with a membrane, creation of pressure gradient, so we can actually inhale and exhale, and compartmentalization, which is separation of the lungs from other organs that we have in the thoracic cavity.